Luminous is a very interesting organization in the sense that it has a mix of very young, very new age type of people, and also traditional, solid experience kind of people as well in the organization. So I have not seen such a clear mix in any other organizations that at least I have been part of, and that's what makes it very interesting, even in terms of learning, because somebody who has had very deep experience and working experience into something, their learning style and their learning motivation is very different from a very young person who's probably just started the career and it's just raring to learn everything. Their learning style and motivation is very different. And as an organization, we have to make sure that we are able to not only reach out to both these segments, but at the same time keep them excited about learning. I'm going to start with a learning strategy, and then move on to how are we making sure that everybody is feeling part of this journey. So our learning strategy is resting on 3 pillars: empower, enable, and engage. And these are the basic tenets of all learning interventions that we are executing. The learning execution happens on the premise of just in time, just enough, and just for me. Which means that if I am a, let's say, service engineer based in Bahraich in UP, I am very clear with my manager what are my learning needs, and the programs that will be presented to me will be exactly aligned to my need. And it is not only my need for my current role, for my current context, it is also dependent on what is it I would want to do next. Do I want to become a senior service engineer? Do I want to move to sales? Do I want to move to factory? Depending on that, my learning path, which is specially curated for me, will shift. So that's the first premise basis which everybody feels, it's not a menu from where I will choose. It is like a specially curated 3-course meal which is presented only for me, and it is not going to be it's not going to be exactly the same for anybody else in the organization. So that's the personalization. Now there are certain programs, or there are certain learning needs which are at an org level and not at an individual level. Just to give you an example, recently we collaborated with NICE to do a course on solar skills, and there we handpicked some people from services and a few people from R&D, and we sent them to this course. Before we send them to this course, we actually had multiple conversations with NICE to tweak the program that they already have. Again, it means that while there is and NICE is a very, very good institute, they have very high level of programs, but even then we have to customize it to the purpose of our organization. So we are always making sure that we do that. Again, the idea of presenting learning and programs to people in the local languages, especially in plants. So in plants, while the workers do not have access to, let's say, laptops where they can do virtual learnings, we have a learning corner in each of our plants. And this learning corner in some of the smaller plants is probably just 2 big screens and some PCs attached to it. And in our newer and bigger plants, these are like full-fledged sort of training rooms, so to say. And here every worker has a unique code, which the code is given to him and it is printed on the back of his ID card or her ID card. They are able to access the system using the QR code on their ID card. And then it opens up the courses which are relevant for them. And as they finish those courses, they are able to get credits, they are able to get certificates, and we also give them small gifts on completing the learning milestones. Recently, we ran a very interesting intervention, and I think it's going on even now, where we sort of created a learning battle. So we had each of us senior leaders in the organization, each of us have been, we have our own teams. And what learning team did is they created small houses, and there are solar panels on top of those houses, and there are bulbs. Depending on the level of learning reached in my team, the number of bulbs will light up. So the target is to light up all 10 bulbs. I think I was at 4 bulbs at one point in time, and then I sort of got everybody together and gave them a pep talk and push them to do some learning. So I'm at 8 or 9 bulbs at this point in time, but there are leaders who are at 10, and it gets published. It is published via our internal communication channel. Everybody gets to see it. So there is this competition happening between leaders as well. We also use our internal communication platform very actively. So we run learning challenges and skill building challenges there also, where again people are posting. They achieve one certification, so they post there. And depending on what is the traction you're getting on your post, it's almost like Instagram or Facebook. You show up on the top of the list, and then maybe you stand to win some goodie. So we've gamified part of it. We have mandated part of it, and we have super customized part of it. That's how we're taking learning to everybody in the organization. Yeah, learning outcomes is always a very widely debated and really challenged topic, I would say, from a business lens, because most of the learning programs are very expensive, and then you don't see the outcome immediately. So there are a few things that we do. First, and remember I said some time back that we've started becoming more ROI focused. So every single learning program, there are some long-standing learning programs which is for leadership development, mid-manager development, talent development, and all of that. So those long-standing programs we continue to run as is, and we don't add anything more on top of it, just to make sure it is simple. But those programs, then we track if there are 20 people who've gone through this mid-management development program, in the next 2 years, how many of them have taken a more complex role? Not necessarily the next hierarchy role, but a more complex role. Because the idea is that you grow not only upwards, but you can also grow laterally. So that's one. And this is true of probably most of our leadership development programs that we run in the organization. So that's the first one. Second, we also run a lot of coaching and mentoring interventions. Again, from a talent perspective, people who we feel have the potential, and we need to give them those extra inputs to help them accelerate their journey towards the target roles. So there we track, if I am going through a coaching program today, there are certain specific needs, coaching needs that I have had. So for sure, manager feedback and peer feedback on how am I showing up on the coaching needs that were there in the first place. That's the first. Secondly, typically people who are going through coaching or mentoring are going because we believe they have the potential and they can do something bigger, something more complex in the short term. So then again we track as to have they now been put into somebody's succession plan, for example, if they were not there before. Or if they were in the succession plan, let's say I may have in the succession plan in the frame of 2 to 4 years readiness. Have I moved up? Am I now in 0 to 1 year succession plan readiness? So those are some of the things by which we know, okay, this person is making the progress. The skill program actually is much easier to track, because it's a very tangible thing. You have a specific skill solar skill you need to be given to people. 24 people attend the program. You do the post-program course evaluation, and then we do the post-program evaluation 3 months after to see how much learning they have retained, what instances where they have used this learning. And for more complex and frankly more expensive learnings, what we've also done is we've got the participants together after 3 months to say, okay, let us share our experiences. How have you used this? And sometimes when we are others, you get an idea, okay, I would have used it this way as well. We've created a community of learners, and we've also created communities depending on different parts of the organization. For example, we have a VP community. Now, all the VPs in the organization are part of this community, and we run a lot of interventions for them, not necessarily learning at all times, but sometimes these are strategy sessions. Sometimes we will have an external speaker who will come and talk about their organization or some best practices. We send them to some company to go and do a study tour kind of thing. Now, that is, to my mind, the most difficult to track an ROI on. But here we rely on whether now they are showing up more strategically in meetings. What is the quality of conversations that now they are having? What is the quality of feedback that they are having from their teams as well as from their superiors? So really it's a mix of tangible and feedback, subjective, objective kind of a tracking that we do. So which means that we have on one hand LinkedIn Learning that we've tied up with, and we have AI-enabled coach with LinkedIn Learning, very self-paced modules, wide variety of topics, which typically the younger people or people who are new to the field would be very keen to learn at, because they can learn at their own pace and they are not having the fear that, oh, people will say that I'm asking stupid questions. So they are very comfortable with that. On the other hand, we have tie-ups, for example, with the likes of NICE and IIT Delhi and IIT Kharagpur and so on, which are very expertise oriented. So the people who have deep experience and who need somebody whom they feel is better than them to be able to learn from them. So that's the group which gets attracted to this type. We have learners community, we have trainers community. Interestingly, a lot of the people who have deep experiences are also very interested in training others. So we've created this training community where you sort of get trained in the basics of training and then do teach back. So if I send somebody to, let's say, for a open class run by IIT, one of the IITs, and this person goes, then it is mandatory that this individual will come back and do a teach back. And we will decide which community they will do the teach back to, depending on the relevance of the course. One, it helps the learning to stick, and two, it spreads the learning. So everybody, irrespective of the level of the organization, if you've gone and done something really new and really deep, you will come back and teach back to the peers in the organization. So that's one thing. Learner community, on the other hand, keeps doing a lot of these, I would say, games, like I talked about. They would do learning treasure hunts and a whole lot of stuff that they do, where they're again sharing their learnings with each other in open forums. We have a very nice sort of an open space on the 5th floor where we do open meets, where people come, and largely these are technology oriented people or people who are interested in technology. So they go there and they talk about the newest learning trends and so on and so forth. So that's another way in which we make sure that the learning sticks. And again, I think the last thing I would mention is, if the learning is interesting and if the learning is relevant, people will come for that program or people will ask for that program. I'm not very emotional about the program. So if we've launched a program and we feel, oh, it's great, it's going to be super hit and everybody will love it and they will learn so much from it, but if people don't like it, we scrap it. It's okay. I am not so worried about sustaining everything. Even if it is just 2 things that we sustain, it's okay. For example, we have a program that we started 3 years back, interesting one. It is called Talent Tank. We had designed it at that time on the concept of Shark Tank. So we give topics to people, and typically these are a mix of technical and commercial topics, and they work in cross-functional teams. And then they come back and sort of do reverse mentoring sessions for the CEO, where they share their ideas and their insights about the topic at hand. Interesting fact, one of the projects of this Talent Tank got converted to an actual product which is going to be launched today, and it is going to be available for all of us in the market. That makes it successful. Now the next batch of Talent Tank is really sort of internally competing. Oh, I need to have something which will get converted to a product which will be launched in the market. So again, if it is relevant, if it makes sense, I think every human being wants to learn. It's just that we have to give them what they need, not what I think you need. So that's the premise on which we operate. For everybody, it is a journey of learning, and it is a journey of reinventing yourself as well as you go around all the transformation. The focus from diversity, equity and inclusion to belonging. It's not only about ensuring that everybody has a place in the organization, that everybody is feeling contributing to the organization, and everybody is invited to participate in the organization. It is also important that people feel that they belong irrespective of what their identity is, their style of working is, whatever is their thought process, whatever is their culture, language, whatever it is, they belong to the organization. I have realized that that is far more important than anything else if you were in a transforming environment, because everybody needs to feel a part of the transformation. Words is the focus on skills. So we have created the skill in the center approach simply because we have to. There is absolutely no going away from skills at this point in time. So whatever we do, whatever my teams do, it is with keeping the skill focus. Whether we are designing a learning program, whether we are talking about values, whether we are talking about culture, what are the skills or which skill muscle are we using in that specific intervention, which are the ones we need to sharpen, and which are the ones that we can park for now. So that's the second big thing. And the third thing, which I personally think has been a great evolution for me, is to see HR as a business and not HR as somewhere at the back on the corner providing support when invited. By HR as a business, I mean, first I have learned and I have actually practiced it and gained a lot from it, to immersing myself into the business completely, whether it is going to the factories and observing the full assembly line and full production line to see what exactly is the process that we are following. And we are a process industry, like battery and inverter and solar panels. These are all process industries. So what is the process that we are following? What are the various points in this manufacturing process? Where are potentially points of failure? Where are potentially points where we can do automations? And thanks to my colleagues in the leadership team, they have really taken me in depth of the manufacturing processes of all three types of solutions that we have. The second is to understand my customers and my partners. So to meet with distributors. Just yesterday, I was in a distributor meeting and talking to people. We were launching some new products and I was hearing their comments and questions about those products. Even if I am not talking about the product, the fact that I'm listening about it and I'm seeing what kind of questions my distributors have gives me a deep understanding of the business. Third is understanding of the technology. So by nature, I am interested and curious about technology. So I've been sitting with our R&D folks to understand deeply what is lithium-ion technology, why is it so compact compared to lead acid, why the battery size changes, weight changes, and so on and so forth. How does a solar cell work, and all of that. So while I've done some courses for myself, but I think again from the R&D teams, I've really understood why is it that we do certain things or we design certain products the way we design. And lastly, I think I have also began to value more. I was valuing it before, but much more, the value of empathy and vulnerability in leadership. Because many a times we are all on our high horses and nothing touches me and I know everything and all that. But in this organization, I have realized the value of being human, going down to a factory worker and asking a simple question about his or her child, or asking about their parents' health, or visiting their families. As a practice, when I travel to any of our factory locations, we go and visit the houses of at least 2 or 3 of our factory colleagues and understand what are their challenges, how do they feel about working here, and all of that. And trust me, that has really helped me think of certain HR solutions, for want of a better word, which would impact not only people sitting in these offices or sitting in the core locations, but also the feet on the street, the people who are really making a difference to the organization. One of the biggest changes that we are seeing in our ecosystem is the shift towards greener, renewable forms of energy. And we are in the field of solar energy, so of course it has a direct impact on us. It has a positive impact on us, to be precise, with the whole focus in the country and across the globe around reducing the carbon footprint, on ensuring that we are not putting too much load on the existing grid, but really making the retail customers self-sufficient in generating and consuming electricity and maybe feeding it back to the grid as well. So the solar solutions come in very handy. So that has an impact on our workforce strategy in terms of both build and buy strategy that we want to have. And that's where the focus is on building those kind of skills. Second is linked to that is also the focus on the lithium ion. And again, I know I'm talking a lot about technical and the skill part of it, but it is really very relevant for us. So focus on the lithium ion skills. The whole global scenario right now, for want of a better word, with tariffs being thrown like punishments or whatever, it has an impact on us, because all said and done, our supply chain is globally linked, right? So for sure there are raw materials that we source from different countries, there are parts that we source from different countries. We come up with a new plant, solar panel manufacturing plant in Rudrapur, where the machinery came from different countries. So none of us are operating in isolation, like you rightly said. So we are part of this global sort of supply chain, and we are all linked with each other. So it has an impact on us, because when there is a tariff and the price of silicon cells goes through the roof, then we have to make adjustments and we have to see, okay, where else can we reduce the cost? So it means that my processes have to become more efficient. I have to make the life of a salesperson or a manufacturing person simpler, so that they end up spending more time with the customers or on the shop floor, and hence I am able to get more productivity from the same person. Such is the case with AI as well. So we are exploring ways in which we can introduce more and more technology into our processes to make it more efficient, more error-free. All the repetitive tasks can be outsourced to technology, so that our people, who are very smart by the way, who are able to use their time to think and strategize about new products, do some innovative work in the markets, provide some innovative services to our customers. Just to give you an example, in our services team, and again, we have by far the largest services network, I think, in the industry. We introduced an automated help desk kind of thing a few years back, so that all the routine queries or all the basic troubleshooting, customers are able to do it themselves on their energy storage devices, and we are now trying to bring it into solar as well, which means that I do not have to invest money to acquire that kind of resources. I can actually upgrade those people to do more, let's say, more technical and more detailed work. So that is also impacting my workforce strategy. And lastly, the markets are also shifting. I mean, just to give you an example, if in the Middle East one country was a very big customer at one point in time, and now there is a turmoil there, and hence we have to quickly shift our focus to another country. Bangladesh case in point, Bangladesh had some kind of turmoil a few months back, and then we had to sort of support our distributors in that country for a while, and then now the situation is back on track. So of course the global sort of environment and global actions do impact the organization, and whatever impacts the organization will translate into our people strategy and the people initiatives that we will do. Yes, for sure. Whenever any kind of transformation or revolution is happening, it will happen at a different pace. There will be some people and teams who will be early adopters, who will just be excited by the possibility of change and will jump onto it. There will be some fence sitters, and there will be some who will be the naysayers. And that's true of any group, irrespective of the organization. Now, some of the things that we've done, and maybe it's a bit of repetition, but I'll say firstly to involve people in the change. So the change cannot happen in isolation, or the change cannot happen only by on the weight of the leadership alone. It has to have the buy-in, it has to have the participation, and it has to have the ownership of people in the organization. And that's why the concept of change ambassadors that I talked about, that we've identified 100 such people and they sort of carry the change across the organization. They've come up with suggestions, they've come up with ideas for change, they've come up with blueprint, and now they are working on implementing those changes across the organization. So that's the first thing. Second thing is continuous communication. Where are we? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we are doing? What is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, so to say? Why is it that you should be going through this pain? Because there is something which is significantly exciting or valuable at the end of the journey, is the communication that we've had and we continue to have. Thirdly, to celebrate every milestone and every small win that we may have, because it is a mega transformation. Like, the whole organization is shifting into a new direction, but it is not going to just make a shift one fine day. It is shifting slowly, and surely it is making that shift. So there are these smaller milestones and there are these small wins that we are having along the way. So to celebrate each of that, and we celebrate it in multiple ways. For sure, there are classical recognition programs in the organization, and there are leadership pat on the back in the organization. We have special sort of mechanisms to reward people who are participating in the change journey. But we also have something that we call on air, which is sort of the CEO speaking to the entire population all at once. And there she specifically, every quarter, she specifically talks about one or two big wins in her mind, and then she calls out those people. We congratulate them, their names are flashed across the organization. Sometimes we invite some of these people to come and talk to her on air, so that everybody gets to see that, and it's a moment of pride for all of them. Apart from that, the other thing that we've done, which again I think is fairly unique in the industry, is that there is a special financial reward associated with the milestones of transformation. And we've identified some people who are critical to make the transformation happen, and it's a significant amount that we give to them every year, provided we reach those milestones. So these are some of the ways in which we've made sure that people are excited about the change, people are contributing to the change, and people are getting updated about the change regularly. Engagement survey is always a very good tool to see what is the level of commitment people have towards the organization, what is the intention they have to do discretionary effort for the success of the organization. So we measure that. In our engagement survey, we specifically have a question around transformation, and it is a question where you can score and also give free text comments. And we generate a word cloud out of that every time, and we share it back with all the employees. We have our internal communication portal, which is called Viva, and there we also generate a lot of conversation through different mechanisms, and sometimes it's a poll, sometimes it's a culture question, sometimes it's a quiz, sometimes it's a crossword puzzle, where we engage people and we encourage them to share their opinion about how are they feeling about the change. So that's one where we try to hear the voice directly from the employees. Another thing which I think is always a good indicator whether people are following the change well or not is the retention percentage. Because if people are feeling uncomfortable or left out or not aligned with the change, they will leave for sure. Especially in today's time when there is no dearth of opportunities across. And I am again very happy to note that consistently in the last 3 years, our retention rates have continued to increase, which means there are less and less number of people who feel that they need to leave the organization because they don't like something that is happening in the organization. Then we have open forums. We have open forums which I do, the HRBPs for sure do, but also the leaders do open forums. And they do it not only with their own teams, they do it with a group of people. So it could be young people, and our CEO also does. It could be a group of young people, it could be a group of women, it could be a group of people in factories. So we do these open forums where they hear their voice, what do they want to tell us. And all of these forums, there is one question we specifically ask, saying, what is it that you liked about the culture 5 years back, and what is it that you like about the culture today? Because again, we are very clear that there was nothing wrong with our culture. We are not changing the culture, we are evolving the culture. So for sure, whatever was working well, whatever was useful in the past, we've carried it forward, and we have added new elements to our culture. So we ask these questions, and again, it's a very, very open culture. I'm yet to see anybody who was asked a question and was not brutally honest about it. So they keep us on our toes at all times as to whether change is going in the right direction or not. And finally, I would say the proof of the success of any organization is the business. It's the business results which will always tell you whether your people are engaged, whether they are contributing, whether they want to contribute. And touch wood, our people have demonstrated that they are with us in this journey.